Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing breaches of the week. This week in data breaches, absolutely nuts. We are talking about a major car rental company, a major tax preparer in both the United States and Canada, a major hospitality organization that runs entire stadiums, the entire country of Australia, Canada's version of the IRS, the CRA, and two massive, massive banks, not to mention the US federal government. This has been an absolutely insane week. And thank you very much to Norman Sandy, Jacqueline Wolf, Sarah Connor again, Adam Pleasant, Steve Hall, and Krish Patel for sending me a lot of this information. And let's dive right in because there is no time to waste. And we're going to start with an update on Clio or Clio Communications. This is that major file transfer vendor because we now have to declare that Hertz Rent-A-Car, yes, Hertz, aka O.J. Simpson's former job, they got hit and customer names, contact details, credit card information, and social security numbers were hit. If you've rented a car from Hertz, you definitely want to check in. Moving on. Let's move to OCH Regional Medical Center. They announced this past Friday that they suffered a data breach back in September 2023, over a year, guys, really, and that potentially compromised a whole bunch of information. They basically sent out a press release that said an unauthorized individual found their way into the systems September 6th of that year and was there until September 14th and exfiltrated or accessed at as much as 67,000 files. All the normal information you would think got hit: names, social security numbers, dates of birth, phone numbers, addresses, diagnosis, disability codes, account numbers, and on and on and on. So heads up to you if you go to OCH Regional Medical Center. And with that, let's move real quick to our mini segment, basically entitled, if you just paid for cybersecurity, you wouldn't be getting your reputation ruined, you wouldn't be getting breached, and you sure as heck wouldn't be getting sued. And with that, we're going to start with MGM. They've been in the news perennially for quite some time now, as I've been talking about their data breach from a couple of years ago, because they just agreed to pay another $45 million to settle a class action lawsuit over the data breaches that impacted millions of their customers. So if you basically are involved in this, you have until May 19th of this year to decide whether you want to be part of this class action. The final hearing is on June 18th, and you have until June 3rd to submit your claim. So go get paid, MGM customers. Moving on. Let's talk about airport retail company Paradise Shops. Now, they are basically closed to finalizing a $6.9 million class action on behalf of employees whose personal information was hit in a ransomware attack back in 2020. So there you go. Former, current employees, go get paid. Moving on, Retina Group of Washington, their settlement has been basically agreed to resolve their breach from March of 2023. That essentially saw access of protected health information for 455,935 individuals. Now, under these terms, $3.6 million fund will be created. You basically have until June 23rd to submit everything. And so here we go. Good luck to you. Moving on, Nuna Baby. And we're going to talk about them again because I talked about them like a month ago with their initial breach, but they are facing another class action lawsuit over claims that they failed to properly secure and safeguard payment card information. This is a second class action lawsuit filed against them this year. Moving on, KU Health and Kansas Hospital, University of Kansas Hospital Authority and Health System, along with Lawrence Memorial Hospital, I assume in Lawrence, Kansas, and Epic Systems Corp, Epic, the major provider of EMR, are facing a class action lawsuit. Two undisclosed patients filed this lawsuit on April 15th after a Lawrence physical therapist breached more than 400 people's medical data to target women who had breast augmentation surgery and other plastic surgeries. In other words, it seems like one of their employees was going in and looking at what I'm guessing are before and after pictures of things like breast augmentations. Not a good look at all. You've really got to train your people, but wild cards are wild card, and I never am a fan of when I see these kinds of things. So please, KU Health and Kansas Hospital women, if you've gotten breast augmentation from them, go get paid. And those were your lawsuits or payouts of the week, and if any of them had just paid for cybersecurity, they wouldn't be losing their reputation, and quite frankly, we wouldn't be talking about them right here, and they wouldn't be losing a ton of money. Moving on to regular breaches. Let's talk about that entertainment services giant Legends International. They detected unauthorized activity on November 9 of last year that obviously prompted an investigation, and basically personal data files were exfiltrated according to them, and I don't have a listing of that, but they manage over 350 venues across 5 continents. We're talking SoFi Stadium in LA, One World Observatory in New York, AT&T Stadium in Texas, the Santiago Bernabeu and Camp Nou stadiums in Spain, Anfield and OVO Arena Wembley in the UK, and on and on and on. So this potentially could be a massive data breach, especially if you've gone to any one of their 350 stadiums around the literal world. So we'll see what happens there. I'll keep you up to date. Moving on, Northwest Radiologists. They confirmed the leak of a leak that potentially includes names, addresses, social security numbers, treatment information, and health insurance info. Northwest/MBI provides clients with imaging, CT scans, x-rays, etc., and local news reported that the impacted patients have yet to be notified. So heads up to you if you go to Northwest Radiologists in the Pacific Northwest. Moving on, insurtech firm Lemonade. Heads up if you've gotten a quote from them, because they just disclosed that a technical issue within their auto-assurance quoting system led to a data breach that inadvertently exposed the driver's license numbers of about 190,000 applicants for insurance. They revealed this in an SEC filing, and they basically said that the breach occurred when certain personal information was mistakenly shared with a third-party data provider. They attributed this breach likely to a, quote, technical issue in its car insurance quote flow, and acknowledged that the information had been transmitted without the company's standard means of protection. So heads up to you, Lemonade users. Moving on, Claxton Hepburn Medical Center and Carthage Area Hospital, both in New York, they were basically impacted by a data breach that involved unauthorized access and acquisition of files on August 31st of 2023. Again, guys, over a year. Anyway, on September 6th of that year, they basically said that health information, names, addresses, dates of birth, social security, medical data, insurance information, diagnosis were compromised. So heads up to you, Claxton Hepburn Medical Center and Carthage Area Hospital, both in New York State. Moving on, Landmark Admin. I want to give you an update on this one because they suffered a security breach on May 13th of 2024 when suspicious activity was detected. Now, this was originally reported back in October of 2024 when I picked it up, and that breach exposed the data of just over 806,000 individuals, but numbers go up, and now they say 1,613,773 were possibly impacted or more. So they've more than doubled their number. Best of luck to all of us on that one. Moving on, Mission Bell Manufacturing. They disclosed that they suffered a data breach that compromised sensitive personal information, I'm guessing of their employees. This was discovered on January 31st, and we're talking name, social security, and driver's license number. So heads up, Mission Bell Manufacturing employees. Moving on, ImaFlex Inc. on February 17th, they detected unusual activity in their systems, and I don't have much more information beyond name, social security number, date of birth, contact info, professional information like title, salary, all that kind of stuff, and additional information contained with employees' human resources files was hit. So if you work for ImaFlex or ImaFlex Inc., you know what to do. Moving on, Concord Orthopedics. On November 21, they discovered an incident of basically a third-party patient software that they use for patient registration and appointment intake got hit. I do not know what that third party is, but what do you have on an intake form? Names, dates of birth, social security, appointment information, health insurance information, including, eligibilities, benefits, all that kind of stuff, not to mention driver's license, state IDs, all that kind of stuff. So heads up to you, Concord Orthopedics patients. Moving on, Doxum Inc. I want to give you an update on this because we've had another company basically declare a data breach as a result, and that would be Financial Plus Credit Union. So heads up to you if you belong to Financial Plus Credit Union for all your credit union needs. Moving on, Western Wayne Family Physicians, an unauthorized third party, gained access to their patient and sensitive medical information, names, social security numbers, medical records, health info, insurance details, and other sensitive information was hit at Western Wayne Family Physicians. Heads up. Moving on, let's head on over to Arkansas. And why isn't it called Arkansas? I don't know, but it's Arkansas. And let's talk about Arkansas Heart Hospital. On March 15th of this year, they say they had an incident involving a vendor system. Again, do not know which. And everything that you would think of in basically an EMR: name, address, phone number, email address, date of birth, social security, treatment, diagnosis information, prescription information, provider name, medical records, case numbers, health insurance, other details, sex, ethnicity, language, maiden name, marital status, religion, death, deceased status, your third grade report card, and everything else pretty much got hit at Arkansas Heart Hospital. Go check in. Moving on. Home Telecom from South Carolina. Now, they disclosed basically on March 17th, and on March 21, they confirmed that they got hit, and the unauthorized access included customer name, address, and social security number. So if you've signed up for Home Telecom, you know what to do. Moving on. Nationwide Recovery Service. This is an update, if you recall, in the last couple of months or so, if you're a longtime listener of mine, that we've essentially been talking about them as ambulances, and state government, or local governments, have disclosed. And now we've got Vitruvian Health, formerly known as Hamilton Healthcare System, declaring as well. And so by virtue of that, Nationwide Recovery Service, that debt collector, getting more people breached, and they're not going to be the last we've heard of them here. Moving on, Nevro Corp. On December 1 of last year, they became aware of a security incident. A third party gained access into their systems and viewed sensitive information between November 21 through December 1st of last year. We're talking name, social security number, driver's license number, financial information like account numbers, credit or debit card numbers, medical information, and health insurance information as well. So heads up to you, Nevro Corp, anything. Moving on, Yale New Haven Health, I'm assuming attached to the Yale University. On March 8th, Yale New Haven Health became aware of an incident in their systems. I don't have more details beyond name, social security number, date of birth, telephone number, email address, race or ethnicity, patient type, and medical record number. Heads up, Yale New Haven Health patients. Moving on. Big Fork Valley Hospital. On November 26th last year, they discovered suspicious activity inside one of their email accounts and are now declaring name, social security, date of birth, phone number, driver's license or state ID, financial account information, medical information, patient account number, diagnosis, treatment, procedure information, cost of treatment, medical history, lab test results, date of admission, location, healthcare provider, what you were thinking in the third grade, not just your report card, and on and on and on. So heads up to you, Big Fork Valley Hospital. Moving on, Indue Software. On February 17th of this year, they had an internal computer system issue that they became aware of. Name, social security number, address, date of birth, and medical record numbers were hit. So heads up to you, if your company, I'm assuming medical company, uses Indue Software, and that could be the third-party provider that we're talking about with all of these. I don't know, but I'll let you know. Moving on. Harcourt's Prime Properties. On March 20 of this year, they were basically notified that they'd been ransomed and had issued data floating around in the dark web with sample document of agent information sheets. Name, contact information, and social security number in some cases were hit. So if you used Harcourt's Prime Properties for all your prime property purchases, heads up. Moving on. British Columbia, Canada. Specifically, British Columbia, the provincial government's Interior Health Authority, which runs hospitals and medical facilities in the southeastern part of the province. Now, the CRA, or Canadian Revenue Agency, it's their version of the US's IRS. These accounts were hacked for thousands of people. Now, it's unclear how many of those names were exploited, but local reporting has found that stolen identities from several Interior Health employees, past and present, have been used to obtain fake CRA refunds and fraudulent loans in the past several years. Pretty much what happens here in the United States as well. Now, a former Ontario privacy commissioner says, quote, "It could be a nightmare," end quote, for individuals whose names and private information were included in this breach. H&R Block, the large international tax preparation firm that I talked about at the start of this, that's who we're talking about. Basically, their fraud cases have now been tied to this data breach for the Interior Health of British Columbia and CRA account breaches. So, maybe this is an HR Block issue. Maybe it's the provincial government. Maybe it's the CRA. We'll see what happens. Either way, I'm going to let you know, and I'm going to keep on it especially for all my Canadian listeners. Moving on, let's head on down under because we got to talk about our Aussie friends. This is absolutely nuts because this is basically what they look like in the first quarter of 2025, because Australia has recorded nearly 400,000 compromised online accounts in its first 3 months of 2025, making it one of the more heavily impacted countries globally from data breaches. This is according to research by Surfshark. Now, Australia ranks 16th in the world among affected countries, with around 398,500 breached accounts during the first quarter of basically 2025. Now, since 2004, Australia has seen over 193 million user accounts compromised, positioning it as one of the most affected, well, technically the most affected country in the Oceania region. In other words, they are being targeted, and they're in the top 20. Now, data showed that 107 million passwords that were linked to Aussie accounts were also exposed here, heightening the risk of unauthorized access, identity theft crimes, all of that. And on average, Aussies have experienced 7 data breaches per person, and so basically they are ranking among the highest again in Australasia. So that is a huge problem. To all my followers down under, and I do know there's a chunk of you out there because I get messages from some of you. Good luck, heads up, and make sure you've got cyber hygiene like the rest of the world does, and I know you guys have been on it. Moving on, federal employee basically here in the United States has alleged that DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, has had some activity that has resulted in a data breach at the NLRB, or National Labor Relations Board, here in the United States. Now, I did an actual deep dive on this one a few days ago, going into the nuts and bolts of the allegations, the responses, the standards, the law, all that kind of stuff. So go please see that previous segment, audio, video, however you're listening to me, radio, go have at it there. Because I think that's an interesting one, and quite frankly, that would really blow up the time that we're spending on these. And so with that, let's get to finalies, because we've got a couple of different finalies for you. The first one that we're going to be talking about here, quite frankly, is insider threat. I think this is one of the biggest issues that organizations around the world actually have. And so what we're going to be talking about is one specific insider threat, and that is a former NFL, that's National Football League, and University of Michigan assistant football coach Matthew Weiss, because he allegedly hacked into the computer accounts of thousands of college athletes, looking for intimate videos and photos of them. So, attorney John Marco, who is representing more than 40 of these victims, said that this investigation is like peeling back the layers of an onion. Weiss is facing a federal indictment for allegedly accessing thousands of basically college athletes' personal information, potentially thousands, and private photos, basically as early as 2015, though the authorities said he continued to do this until 2023, I'm assuming when he was caught. 150,000 student athletes' accounts in colleges and universities were impacted by this breach. 150,000 accounts. That's crazy. Now, more than 3,000 of those accounts involved intimate and private videos and photos, according to the authorities. So, 147 he accessed and didn't find anything and moved on? I don't know the particulars of that, but it really speaks to essentially what we're talking about here. Now, I don't know if he has any kind of sophistication and understanding about basically account access through hacking or other types of techniques like phishing, or if simply these are systems that are run that administrators have access to keep an eye on students for some kind of regulatory purpose, or whatever. I know students have not quite the same rights under the law, at least here in the United States, fully constitutionally. So, for example, the Supreme Court has come and said, well, you can do locker searches in things like high schools if you are looking for something suspected, and you don't need a warrant to do that. So maybe it's the same thing. I don't know. But either way, this dude was breaking into a whole bunch of people, men and women, from what I understand, looking for intimate anything, which also underscores the fact, why are you keeping it in email? Just FYI, get something secure and encrypted. So there you go. I'm not telling you how to do your business. Moving on. The next, finally, I want to talk about here is crime, because it doesn't pay. Now, it pays for a while, but eventually you get caught. Now, here's what's going on, because an alleged co-founder of Anonymous, that online anonymous hacking group, has been taken into custody after a 2021 data breach targeting the Texas Republican Party. And this is actually recent news, but this is how far back these attacks go. Now, the person we're talking about is Aubrey Cottle, a 37-year-old Canadian national known professionally as Curtainer. Now, the U.S. Department of Justice, or DOJ, charged Cottle with hacking into the Texas Republican Party's web server and stealing sensitive data in 2021. I believe I remember that case from a while ago. Now, Cottle was arrested in Canada this past Wednesday, and authorities there are pursuing additional charges under Canadian law, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. Now, in Texas, Cottle is facing charges of, quote, unlawfully transferring, possessing, or using a means of identification with the intent to commit or aid and abet or in connection with unlawful activity under state or federal law, according to a press release. Sounds like it was possibly a credential compromise, and Mr. Cottle was just logging in as somebody from the Texas Republican Party. That's what it sounds like. So, according to the news release from acting U.S. Attorney Margaret Leachman for the Western District of Texas, Cottle gained unauthorized access to a third-party hosting company called Epic before defacing Texas GOP's website. Now, I remember the Epic case, and quite frankly, Epic was incredibly shady. There was a lot of Russian intelligence influence there, all of that. Like a lot of extremist groups were using Epic. So I have no idea how the official GOP of Texas or any state or nationally would end up on Epic. But there has been a lot of exposures of that, particularly by reporting by Brian Krebs, who quite frankly is doing the cyberlord's work when it comes to these kinds of things. So it's just a weird thing all around. And so we're going to see what happens, because maybe this Canadian has ties to the Russians. I mean, a lot is going to come out, but I'm going to keep you up to date here, because I think this is a super important one. And finally, let's come back to the United States and talk about the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, or OCC. This is crazy because financial giants are now abruptly cutting connections with the OCC, which is, for the record, one of the top bank regulators here in the United States, amid a new security warning. So we're talking about giants like JPMorgan Chase Bank, Bank of BNY Mellon, and others have stopped electronically sharing data with the OCC following a severe breach of the email system of that regulator. That's according to Bloomberg. Now, the OCC says that it's notified Congress of a, quote, major information security incident, end quote, involving unauthorized access to several of its executives and employee emails. The contents of these emails include, quote, highly sensitive information relating to the financial condition of federally regulated financial institutions, end quote. Again, that's according to the OCC. Now, upon consultation with the Department of Treasury, the OCC determined that the incident met conditions necessary to be classified as a major incident. According to people familiar with this matter, banks routinely provide financial information to the OCC that not only includes standard financial data, but also highly confidential information about terrorism, espionage, and other investigations. JPMorgan and BNY both declined to comment, but a spokesperson for the OCC said that the agency is working with cybersecurity experts to analyze the breach and further evaluate their IT systems. And quite frankly, these are the things that keep me up at night. Now, we do not know the source of this, and you, if you're a longtime listener or follower of mine, you know that I have done segments on, DOGE, for example, the Department of Government Efficiency. Are they the ones that have actually breached things, even though they were ordered by literally the President of the United States to go in there? You can go watch all of that content. I'm not speculating that this is DOGE, but if, let's say, they got access in a way that they shouldn't, even outside, let's say, the channels, then that could potentially be it. Is this an outside hacker? Is this the Russians? We don't know. And I think that's one of those big wild cards there. But if I'm basically keeping up at night with my clients that are financial institutions, it's this kind of stuff. When you've got third-party chains getting hit, when they're sending sensitive information that should be secured by the government and is not for some way, shape, or form. Now, again, somebody could have innovated around excellent defenses. It does happen. We don't know, but it's of deep, deep concern. And so those were your breaches of the week around the world. Absolutely crazy week. Were you impacted? Let me know. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please remember to stay private and secure. Take care.